Can't understand? Welcome to our philosophical discussions.
My name is Salman,
And I'm Mishwari.
and our big question today is:
To what extent is authority a necessary part of our system? But before we go on with that, let's address something. We haven't been here for a month because we thought about doing this as a project over the summer. But now, since we thought of some more questions and all that, we thought we'd continue with it throughout the entire year. So let's go with that.
we have two guests today. Please introduce yourself.
Okay, I'm Jahan. I was waiting for Mustafa to introduce myself. I'm Jahan, and I go to school with Salman in Pakistan, Lahore. And now Mustafa is going to introduce himself.
Hi, I'm Mustafa. I also go to school with these people.
I used to go to school with Salman. Then he left.
I go to TRS Weekend House in Lahore, Pakistan.
Yeah, it's better than
Okay.
Abu Dhabi.
I'm based here in Abu Dhabi.
All right.
Let's start. Okay, so to what extent is authority a necessary part of our system? First of all, when do you guys think authority is okay? When is it necessary, for example, always necessary?
Well, in specific cases, for example, like rape and obviously murder and abuse and all of these, situations where authority is necessary and laws are important because, people need to know what's allowed and what's not and what's ethically and morally okay as well. So that's where I think, but some places I feel like authority can be a bit, yeah.
I feel like it should be used, but in the right quantities. Because how in I don't want to say this, but how in 1984 there's too much authority.
I knew you were gonna say that.
Yeah,
Sadhu would be so happy.
but that's when authoritarianism turns into totalitarianism. That's when it becomes the biggest issue.
Yeah.
But
So
when do you guys think authority is good? Yes, sorry, go on.
No, what was the question?
What? Oh no,
What was
so
the
when
question?
do you think authority is necessary? So for example, legislation and law, that's a good example.
Do you think the I don't know, is checking people at those army stops really necessary with so much authority?
Yeah.
I don't know, in school, how much difference the students don't have as much say and how much authority the upper management has. Is that already divided probably? I guess it's just different on each level.
Yeah,
I agree.
Yeah, I personally feel that in many systems, authority is really necessary. If you look at a domestic setting and parents trying to teach their children stuff, authority, even though some parents will disagree on the, on the magnitude and how much authority should be used, many would agree that authority is necessary in guiding your children towards a certain direction and preventing them from doing something wrong. And I think that can be extrapolated in many different systems, that authority can be used often in the right way to guide people towards the right direction.
definitely. I think authority is typically used as either a form of guidance in a lot of cases, be it teachers and students or parents and children, anything like that. But a lot of the times so in that sort of sense, obviously authority is incredibly necessary. But there are a lot of times when it becomes not necessarily totalitarianism or totalitarianist but it can become too much. For example, like you said, 1984, it results in a lack of individuality, and then it results in a lot of rebellion that any sort of authority can't control. And then in that sort of sense, there is no form of authority that would control that.
Yeah.
And in that sense, authority doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah.
Okay, wait. Have you guys done the political compass test?
No.
Wait, what is that?
It's
a
a test
are you
the left
right,
and right
or left?
Oh, yeah, that
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then whether you're
Are left wing because honestly,
I think
the school is very left wing.
Yeah.
Same. I fall under left wing as well. But then there is so the y-axis goes under authoritarianism and liberalism. That's right. That's right. Yeah. So in that sort of sense, I think most people that I have talked to go for less of the authoritarian sort of era, because that sort of control can never be. I mean, no one wants to be controlled, obviously, because again, it can result in a lot of a lack of independence, and it completely strips you of a lot of things that you would want to do and without a lack of authority. And yeah, so in that sort of sense, we don't really know how necessary authority is in our, I think, sorry, my mom keeps texting me, in our society. But okay, let's look at what would you guys define as, what would you guys have as a turning point, for example, when authority becomes too much? Is there a specific thing?
I feel
Yeah, well, you know, a lot of political situations across the world where authority and you know, people use their political power for the wrong, I guess. So, for example, in the case of the Rohingya Muslims in Myanmar, I think, like over there, they're just being discriminated based on their religion. But I guess the notion that's used, you know, basically the discrimination that's done is they're basically the government and all is using their authority in the wrong way, in my opinion. Yeah.
Definitely.
And
yeah, I personally feel that whenever authority is being used to the point that people can't be in, you know, their own unique self, and they feel that there is a significant lack of freedom, that is when it's too much. When people lack
I
their
agree. That is,
individuality.
Yeah. So
Like when it comes to violence,
Hmm.
that is when it can get like too much. But like not like violent. I got like, I'm not gonna lie, I got beat up. I got not beat up. I got beat as a child. Like I got slapped like every other week, right, for doing stupid stuff. But like I don't. It's not like I regret it. I'm actually happy that that happened because it made me understand what I did wrong, and like that like my negative actions actually have consequences. I feel like that type of authority is necessary because if you
yeah,
don't have it, people will do just whatever they want without any like consequences back. And I feel like you should instill that at like a very young age that like when you do something bad, bad stuff will
yeah.
happen to you.
Okay, so I kind of get what you're saying, because there's this thing that Aristotle said that was like, if you have something, like if you have just any sort of thing, and you take a component out, and if the whole thing falls apart after taking that one component out, it was obviously a very necessary component. And so we're using that analogy in this. If you take authority out of like a society, for example, do you think the whole thing would fall apart?
It wouldn't be like the
Yeah,
I think
for
it
perfect.
sure.
would. It would. It would.
Hmm.
Yeah, definitely.
Authority helps
Um,
set limits on society and what is acceptable and what is not. And so if you completely get rid of authority, people will just do what they want. They won't, you know, respect certain boundaries that need to be respected. Like in the
But
Exactly.
case
I
of
feel yeah, I feel like you can't take authority out though, right? Because some
hmm,
people, I would say, like some people are followers and some people are leaders. So like even if you take out the government or something, there will always be someone you follow, or there will always be someone like, or maybe there's always be people you follow. So there will always be like a balance of power, whether that's like actual like fame, money,
yeah.
but
yeah.
Definitely. But then again, when it comes to like authorities controlling things, like for example, in Karl Marx's The Communist Manifesto, like communism, for example, works great in principle, but definitely not in practice. And like if the government mandates like everyone's gonna get like equal this and that, human nature would obviously like that would never happen, because people naturally either have very authoritarian roles, and people are greedy. They either want power or they want the resources, whatever that is. So in that sort of sense, I feel like authority not being a thing would work in practice with everyone being equal and all that. But I don't think it would ever work necessarily in, did I say in practice? Sorry, it would never work in practice, but it would work in principle with everyone being equal. But why don't we break it down? So let's start with authoritarian roles from like parent to child or teacher to child. At what point does that become too controlling, and what can like the consequences, I guess, of that be? Or what do you guys think?
Obviously, I feel like every single parent has their different parenting style, and we can't really judge them for how they want to raise their child. But personally, what I think is that, you know, they should set limits on their children, but they should give them enough freedom for the, you know, children to grow and explore their own options and on their own as well. Because, you know, what I feel like in many cultures and even in our own Pakistani culture, you know, parents tend to be a bit too strict, especially on their daughters, you know, setting too many boundaries and everything. But you know, personally, I feel like I'm very lucky because my parents are liberal, and that has helped me grow as a person. And like I feel like trust is really important, and you can't really trust your children if you're just gonna be you know, suspicious of them or whatever. And
Definitely.
and that's why, like, you know, they need to, like, there should be authority. You there should be a mutually respect, and I feel like, you know, respect is more important than being like always dominating, I guess, even
Yeah.
in like parent children relationships. And
Definitely. Yeah, and I think with that, like when you're given an authoritarian role, like for example, parents or teachers, there's automatically like there's an underlying assumption that they should be respected a lot more than like people below them, or that they deserve a certain amount of respect. Because in that sort of sense, like parents and their authoritarian roles typically do show that they care, because there are, I'm sure, some parents that have no regard for their children and don't really hold an authoritarian role simply because they don't care like about that. So in that sort of sense, authority is very important, not just to like guide their children, but also to just show that they do care. And again, like for me in Indian culture, my parents were never controlling, but they did have and still do have very authoritative status compared to me. But yeah, definitely in that sort of sense, I think it is quite beneficial and it does work. What do the guys think?
Can you repeat the question?
Where were we at?
What was the question?
The question was, so we were talking about, authoritative roles in parenting and school teacher relationships and stuff.
I think
School teacher.
I think parents should trust their children completely until they find out that they're doing something wrong.
So it's very innocent until proven guilty.
You know what I'm saying is
That's kind of
basically if you're really controlling, they're gonna do the same thing, but they're just gonna do it without you knowing.
I agree. Exactly.
That's true.
Like I'm speaking from example right now. Like if my parents don't let me do something, I'll do it without letting them know. It's better if I do the same thing.
I'm gonna send this recording to you.
Don't send this to my mom.
Do it.
If they trust me, they know I'm gonna do it.
Yeah.
But they know what I'm doing. But like here, like they don't know what I'm doing. I'm still gonna do it. Basically, what I'm saying is you need to have authority, but you also need to have respect that you have a child who wants to go, obviously, do normal child stuff.
Yeah. And
because I feel like,
Go on.
John's iconic internet lag.
She's frozen on my. Okay, I'll speak then. No, like in that sort of sense, like there is a certain amount of authority that is necessary, because like my parents, like they're obviously not gonna let me drink or smoke or anything like that, but they were never super controlling to the point that it was like don't you dare do this and don't you dare do that, and like because of that sort of trust, but still the authoritative figures that they were and are, like I don't drink and I don't smoke, but like
exactly same. That's same because I personally feel like, if they've given me enough freedom, then I should respect the boundaries that they've set for me. And like, because they've given me a lot. Exactly. So like, like I trust them and then they trust me. And then, they're still like, I hold them in high regard and I respect them.
Yeah. Exactly.
I think often
Johanna and I are the only ones telling the truth, by the way. Anyone watching.
Exactly. I feel like both of them have like something fishy going on.
The boys are like,
hello.
Oh my god.
So I definitely agree that authority is really important in a parent-child relationship, but at the same time, there needs to be respect mutually. Often in like societies, in the society I live in, Pakistan, parents don't really understand the fact that respect needs to be mutual. Like children need to respect their parents, but at the same time, parents need to have that same respect for their children, like in the form of trust. So I think that is really important.
Definitely. Absolutely. Any other points on the parent thing, or shall we move on to a bigger picture of it?
Let's move on to like the government authority. Like
because we all know the
can we talk about
will not speak the truth in this question, so
no. Hello. Can we talk about how in Pakistan, if you make fun of the army now, it's like a fine?
What?
Like
Sorry?
if you attack the army on social media, you can get like 3 years in jail. You can.
I think it's just become a trend. It's just become a trend. Like all the people who are anti-Imran Khan, they're just like, oh, he got selected from the army, and then they got him up. I think it's just like
people
they're not even informed enough to actually make a judgment. They just say it because jumping on the bandwagon.
I think there should be some authority on media. Because right now, the amount of fake news that exists, and not even like just American, like international news, but like the amount of like how they manipulate stats to make stuff look bad. Like even in Pakistani news,
TWE
like,
statistics conceal as much as they reveal.
Yeah, they'll show like the inflation rate, but they
Wait,
won't
I'm
show
gonna go
like
get
the
my
growth
laptop
rate.
charger. I'm gonna
Uh,
go get my laptop charger.
Like
Yeah,
they'll show
sure.
one stat, but they won't show the good side of it. Like it's easy to manipulate.
Yeah.
I feel like we should have some authority over, but not too much authority over media, because then it just obviously then it's like
Obviously.
no freedom of speech.
Yeah.
But there
Yeah.
needs to be some control over fake news. Like Facebook, like there's nothing. There's like they can
Have you
post
seen
whatever
The
you
Social
want.
Dilemma?
Yeah, I saw it. I actually saw it. It's on
Wait, what
Netflix.
is
Yeah.
that?
Documentary?
There's literally a statement. It's a documentary on Netflix.
Okay.
Must watch.
Should watch
But
it. So good.
there's literally a statement that says fake news on Twitter spreads 6 times faster than fake news on in newspapers, for example. Because obviously on newspapers things have to be fact checked before they're published for the most
Yeah.
part. But on the internet, anyone can upload anything, and that's what flies. And especially if you're from like a higher position, like if you're considered an influencer, like not even politicians, like
Kanye West
influencers. Yeah. Oh, perfect
running
example.
for president. Like he can say anything, and his followers will blindly follow him without checking anything.
Exactly.
I'm
Exactly.
not saying the two other president candidates are any better. Because to be honest, like if I was an American, I'd just move out, because just like
Vote for
it's so
Kanye.
stupid how bad their options are.
I feel like
Kanye,
I'm living
Kanye.
in 2016 again.
Kanye's the best.
We should vote for Kanye.
God.
But
No,
yeah.
but yeah, definitely in that sort of sense, obviously, there should be some sort of, not even just authority, but like authority in the control over like things like social media, for example, and like news, especially news, because like we were doing this in TWE as well, like with perspectives, and like if you have a perspective, it's obviously going to be confirmation bias. Like you will believe whatever like falls into your viewpoint. And that's what we did for our presentation as well, was similar to that. But you're going to believe whatever falls with your viewpoint, no matter how many people oppose it, because it's easier to do that. And like Leibniz, I think that's how you pronounce his name, like the philosopher, like if you change one thing in history, there will be a butterfly effect of everything after, and all of that has to change because you've changed that one small thing. So like obviously, like if you have things that like align with your values, you're going to believe that instead of changing your whole perspective. Like it's an active choice to have to change your whole perspective, which people won't do. And that could probably be changed with us like a bit of authority or control over things that come onto social media. Because really, what is there? Nothing.
There's nothing. There's no check anything. Anyone can say anything.
Anyone can tweet whatever they want. I know in places like India, if you say anything about like politicians, for example, it is in pretty bad taste and you can go to jail for it. So in that sort of sense, it is decent, but that doesn't like combat fake news or anything like that. Which
you know
I
that
think
thing. You know that's actually. You know what they use it for? The only way it would work is if you made fun of someone in the ruling party. Only then you'd be convicted. If you made fun of someone who was opposition, no one would care. So it was basically just propaganda, just to remove people that didn't like you.
Yeah.
Same thing happened in Pakistan. Basically, every time someone would oppose Imran Khan, oh, they're in jail. Oh my God, how that happened.
Exactly, and that's when authority becomes too much. We have too much authority, but in the wrong place. Too much authority in the wrong place. But okay, so let's look at our society as a whole. Who do we associate authority or a higher status with, so to say?
Government, definitely.
Yeah, government officials for
Law
sure.
enforcement.
The military in
Law
Pakistan, I'd say.
Yeah,
so
the
much
army,
power.
Yeah.
the police system.
And like, yeah, and look what's happened with that in like the States as a very easy example to look at. Just because of their authority, they use that, and they use that as a way to racially discriminate. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I don't think that has much necessarily to do with only the authority they've given, but because obviously not every cop is bad. I know ACAB is a thing, but that refers to the system, which many people seem not to get. But like, it's the people themselves which obviously are corrupt, and when given that authority, it really shows because
it's the same issue in Pakistan. Like, you know, like all of our previous leaders, for example, they've done money laundering and everything, but it's the influence that they have, how they've already managed to manipulate so many people into believing.
They'll do one good thing and then mention it for the next 6 years.
Yeah, that's
and
like
not talk about what they did for 6 years and how much money they like stole.
So that's like, you know, we study this concept in English once, it's like the Overton window. So like, you know, sometimes, you know, if you have Donald Trump as well, like when you're at a certain end of the spectrum, that people like, usually perceive you as so bad and everything. But when you do something, that's when they like,
Happy,
you're
so.
suddenly better than even the normal thing. You're just like, doing something completely normal.
Yeah, it comes normalized.
But it's
It's
considered
like-
so amazing because it's like, wow.
I remember like in my village, right? We didn't have running water, right? Which is basic human right? And like they got running water, and it was like insane. It was like a big celebration, like he's like a god or something. And then no one really realizes that like this is like what it should be there for you. Like you're paying taxes. It should you should not celebrate running water. You should realize that you should have had this years ago. But when you deprive people so much and you give them a basic human right, obviously they're getting a lot better.
Yeah, it's like what's his name? Hertzberg's theory of motivation. Is it him? Yeah, it's Hertzberg. With like there are things called hygiene factors and then motivators. I'm sure someone's done this in business or whoever.
Yeah, we've done it.
If you've all done in business. But like the hygiene factor, like for most people, like you expect to have running water, but when you deprive people like with the authority you have, for example, anything can become a motivator simply because you didn't have it before, regardless of whether you had the right to it or not. And so obviously in that sort of sense, it's so clear how authority can be used to manipulate anybody, and so easily.
It can definitely
Especially
be
with, like,
manipulated to change your perceptions.
Definitely. Saman, you good?
Yeah, I was just contemplating and not on that one.
No, but yeah, definitely. What else can we look at authority in? I think the big one is definitely in society and how misused authority is in a lot of societies. Not everywhere, but I think jail is a really good one. With like, okay, so in the US, jails are not really used as rehabilitation, but rather as punishment for like any criminal, obviously. Not prison, jail, like proper jail.
But I think that's the case. Yeah.
In most countries.
In most countries, like even in Pakistan, I think that jails aren't exactly used.
Yeah, most
You don't
places.
want to go to Pakistan jail.
I don't want to go to jail anyway.
Go to Edson.
No, but I'm just using the US as like a prime example. But like, for example, Jeff Sessions, one of the US Attorney Generals, like he advocated for these harsh conditions in prisons, and he was able to get that obviously because of authority. And then the prison guards, for example, or jail guards, or however you call them, they use that authority to sort of instill that on the prisoners and sort of use that against the prisoners, and that they're higher and they can do whatever they want to prisoners. But like places like Sweden, for example, that have very rehabilitation style prisons where it's not a very condescending sense of authority, but rather it's just there to, like we said with like school, for example, instill like a sense of discipline without it being totalitarian-like. Those are the prisons that produce the most reformed like prisoners or ex-prisoners or ex-cons, whatever you want to call them. So obviously in that sort of sense, authority doesn't necessarily mean using it in every way you can to like punish people, but rather to use it in a way to discipline people or help them or rehabilitate them or anything like that.
Yeah, that's definitely true.
Exactly.
I mean, a lot of authority can be good if you use it properly.
Definitely.
I agree with like having authority, like, but I feel like, it should be like, regulated in a way.
Yeah.
Like, there should be limits on authority as well.
Yeah,
Definitely.
but I think in some cases it is good to have like extreme authority. Like if someone has like killed someone, you like hanging that person might be a good decision to set an example for other people.
And even in rape, for example, like, now Pakistan has that thing, they're going to be chemically castrated, the men who do the thing. But like, the process in itself, to convict the rapist is so complicated that it's actually like, very difficult for.
A lot of people don't even report it because like they don't investigate it.
Because they already know, like it's sad because they've already lost hope before even trying. Because they know that they're going to get in trouble in the end.
That's true. Like again, while I don't necessarily believe in capital punishment, for example, but it is a good like misuse of authority. Like the process to prosecute someone is something that isn't even done most of the time.
It's based on money most of the time. Whoever can get the best lawyer, whoever can fight the judge, especially in Pakistan, whoever can pay the judge.
Whoever has the most influence, whoever has the most money.
Definitely.
So I used to go to this cricket academy, right? and this kid, he was like one of the best kids on our team, but he didn't make the team because this kid, who was a son of an ex-Pakistani cricketer, made the team, and he didn't even come to the tryouts because like, and then that kid lost hope, never played again. He was that like he was 100% he was going to be international, like he was that good. I have so many things like that where like actual hard work comes under authority, where it's like it's sad to see, but you can't do anything about it because that's how the system works, and you have to stay with the system.
It's true.
Yeah, that's just corruption, like at
Yeah.
smaller levels, and then there's corruption large level. But like
Yeah,
honestly,
authority leads into that.
because people who
Wait,
do
she's
work
frozen on Brian.
hardest deserve it, no opportunity there.
Yeah, that's true. Sorry, you
Okay,
froze
now
my
is it
first.
fine?
No, it was fine now. It just froze for like a second and then it was fine.
Yeah. Basically, I was
okay,
saying,
wait, I have like a
okay,
final
you know how? Sure. Yeah. No. Go ahead.
No, go on. No, sorry.
No, basically what I was saying is, it's really unfortunate how, like, hard work is even, like, people who actually deserve positions, leadership positions, even in, like, governments and all of that, they don't get it purely because of corruption. And, yeah, that's it.
Yeah, it's true. Authority does come with a sense of responsibility. That's why I would, like, for example, like, I was in the student council, but I never used my authority to be like, yeah, like the kids want this when like they obviously didn't want that. I used it to like listen to the kids, not the kids, but like the people in my year, and be like, yeah, like they want so and so. But yeah, with authority comes responsibility, which I feel like so many people just don't seem to comprehend, especially those in definitely in authoritarian positions. It just Before we finish and like give final thoughts, would you guys rather have a society with zero authority or total authority, and why?
I can't think.
That's a
Right?
really
I
difficult question.
don't know if I can answer that question.
I think both situations would lead to a really dystopic world. One
Definitely.
Yeah, exactly.
One would be like a 1984
100%.
kind of a world where people don't have any
Which one's worse,
individuality or
though?
freedom, and then there's
Yeah, like
another
The
world
Giver.
with no
Remember, Musa, we read The Giver as well.
Yeah,
It was
we
so
did.
controlled, and there's no like freedom, but that was still probably better.
That would
than,
be an example of absolute authority.
You guys should read 1984.
Okay.
But the other one would be really bad as well, because that would mean that people can do anything they want.
Yeah, no restrictions.
Like no one would do anything. Like there would be like authorities, the reasons,
There'd be no
and
system.
even rules
There
and
would be no
regulations and
system,
norms
yeah.
of the country. People go to work because of authority.
I don't know if you guys have
They
watched
do
The
their
Purge.
job because.
Sorry,
Have you
what?
guys watched
The
The
Purge.
Purge?
Yeah.
Yeah. John,
Oh,
do you know what it is?
The Purge, right?
I haven't seen it, but like I've heard.
It's basically there's one night where there's no law, and it's a shit show.
But that's because there is law until they decide to liberalize everybody for one night. So obviously they're gonna act out on things they couldn't. Because
one night.
Yeah.
No, but then wouldn't it be the same? If this is enacted, so like, would it mean that we've had no law forever, or is it like
I
just
say you
like
can't
one
have
day?
no authority, because like we all have moral values, right? Like if I see, like I would say if anyone sees like a girl getting harassed or something, would obviously step in, even though there's no authority or law. Like
you
would
have
obviously
moral values and everything because of authority. Like you weren't like just
Comes back
born
to-
with
Maybe.
those values.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
But
very
it's
like in the nature versus nurture. It's definitely from nurture. Like you're not born with manners necessarily.
Exactly.
I mean, no, you're not.
Babies
not
are
even necessarily.
disgusting.
But that comes down to like authority, like in the authoritarian status that your parents have. But like as a world, like with either full authority or no authority, I know like in a political compass test, I'm on liberal, like I'm a left lib, so I'm like, well, it's gonna come reflected on the thing, but it's basically left down. That's like close to the axis, but yeah, like I seem to be more towards the liberal thing, but it would never work because look at human nature. Like we all study economics. Humans are greedy. I mean, you're going to. Humans are greedy. Humans are selfish, and they're very intuitive a lot of the time. And so, if we had a world with like no rules, essentially, because there's no authority, can you imagine what animals we would turn into? I use animals basically because we are
anything
animals,
in
but
extremes just doesn't work. Literally anything in extremes doesn't work. You have to moderate everything. was one thing of too much,
Yeah,
like if you go extreme of communism, with like Soviet Union, China, you go
yeah,
extreme of like capitalism and authority, like
yeah,
it's just you have to find a balance basically. I feel
exactly.
like that balance still needs to be found because
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, we're not close to it, but we're closer than any of the extremes, obviously. It's a
we're making
satisfactory
progress,
starting
right?
point.
I mean,
Yeah, it's a starting point. It's a journey, indubitably a long one, but it's a
We'll
journey.
get there.
So how are you
Yeah.
mocking my indubitably?
yes,
I saw you mouth that. I was like,
indubitably.
I always like
Please
have trouble
stress
saying that word. Indubitably. Undoubtedly.
Funny.
There we go.
There you go.
Any final thoughts, guys?
Mm.
I think pretty much
Not
summed
really.
up everything. But someone's eating your sandwich.
I
Not
haven't had
really.
dinner yet, and I can't eat after 8. So what do you?
Oh my
Why?
god.
It's just this thing I do. I don't eat from 8 to 12 in the morning.
Who said that? Was it an authoritarian figure?
Yeah, some random guy on YouTube who Jack was like he's like Jack, so he's like, oh, don't eat from 8 to 12. So I was like, yeah, I'll listen.
Okay, any final thoughts? I think we've pretty much
No?
summed everything up
Yeah, I think we talked
there.
about
I
it.
think
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you guys so much for joining us. Thank you, everybody. All 4 of our
Thank
viewers
you.
for watching.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
So,
Please come on again soon. Salman can arrange it because he's like the middleman between us. But thank you guys so much for watching. Anyone that watched. And yeah, we will see you guys next week, hopefully.
Okay. Bye bye. See you.
Bye bye.